All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Mediotti, and I did my project on national avocado sales data. So just a quick outline of what this presentation is going to look like. I'm going to talk a little bit about the data that I found, get into my hypotheses, and the data visualizations and analysis of the hypotheses, just to try to answer those questions that I made, and then just some final conclusions about those hypotheses. So about the data, it mainly focuses on avocado sales from 2015 to 2018 throughout 54 major regions of the US. It's a lot of data points. It's about 18,000 or a little over 18,000 data points, and it includes a lot of information, pretty much all you need to know about avocados during this time period, including average price, whether it was organic or conventional, and the date by week sold in each region. And so for my analysis, I mainly just focused on price, date, and the region, and the relationships between each of those. So the four hypotheses I made were the price of avocados is not normally distributed, and I guessed that the data would be skewed right because I assumed, well, the outliers in the data would probably be on the higher end of the price side. So I thought there'd be more outliers that are more expensive than less expensive, so I thought it'd be skewed right. My second hypothesis is that the average price of avocados per week in 2015 wouldn't be normally distributed either. And the third one being that avocados are most expensive in the winter months because they're out of season. And that could go hand in hand with demand. So we'll see what we find about that. And lastly, avocados would be most expensive in San Francisco, which is one of the regions that the data covered, where prices are higher than the national average for most produce. So for the first hypothesis, the price of avocados was not normally distributed, so that was correct. As you can see, the histogram looks fairly normal, but you see it tails off a lot at the end here. There's a lot of outliers on the more expensive side of the avocado prices, and as you can see from the probability plot, there were just so many data points that it makes the plot look a little bit like what you would not expect, but as you can see, there's so many points that are just not within that 95% confidence interval. And this box plot really just shows all the outliers on the higher end of the average price, which shows that it is actually skewed right. So that hypothesis was correct. Getting into my second hypothesis, I assumed, or I guessed also that the average price of avocados per week in 2015 would not be normally distributed. However, that was incorrect, as you can see from this probability plot. When I took the average price by week of each avocado in 2015, you can see that it is actually normally distributed, even though it doesn't look quite as normally distributed in the histogram. The probability plot shows that it actually is. For my third hypothesis, I hypothesized that avocados would be most expensive in the winter months, like November through January, because they're out of season at that time. However, as you can see, they're actually most expensive in the summer months, starting around like July and getting into early October, late September. So that hypothesis was also incorrect, and that's only representative of 2015. So there is a smaller sample size there, but I think it's because demand is generally higher in the summer for avocados for things like guacamole. And so that is why that was incorrect. And for the fourth hypothesis, I hypothesized that avocados would be most expensive in San Francisco, where prices are higher than the national average for most produce. And I had to put this on a separate slide because of just how many regions there are represented. But as you can see, Hartford Springfield is actually the most expensive, with San Francisco coming in second. And then Houston and Dallas, Fort Worth, so some regions in Texas, actually have the lowest prices in the nation during that 4-year period for avocados. So final conclusions, the average price of avocado data at large, which was over 18,000 data points, is actually not normally distributed, and it is skewed right. So that was correct. The average price of avocados per week in 2015, however, was normally distributed, which I found interesting, and you could, for a second project, do some more data analysis on that. Avocados are actually most expensive in the summer months, likely because demand is higher in the summer, as I talked about a little before, with the peak being during the week of August the 2nd, 2015, where avocados were nationally averaged priced at $1.47 7 cents. And lastly, avocados are most expensive in the Hartford-Springfield region, which is north central Connecticut and western Massachusetts. I'm not totally sure why. Um, San Francisco actually came in as second most expensive, so it wasn't entirely incorrect. And Houston was the least expensive, with Dallas-Fort Worth coming in second least expensive. So the Texas region was really inexpensive for avocados during this time period. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you soon.